And Ethan, this is being recorded, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm setting up the YouTube live stream right now.
Because Kelly is going to be reviewing this afterwards. So we'll give Scott, it's only 6:29. And Kyle, are you it for building? I'm sorry, not just you, you and Lisa. Are you, Joe's not coming, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Hi, Lisa. We're just waiting for Scott, then we'll be all set.
Ron, are you growing your beard out for your big show next month?
What's that?
Are you growing your beard out for your big show next month?
Yeah, I don't know yet, but we'll see. By the way, this pandemic thing is still here. It started in March. And hi, Scott.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay. A little internal business first. You'll see that, and I think you all know this, but Kathy is no longer with us. She had personal and professional obligations that were just making it, she felt hard to function properly as a zoning board member anymore. And Julie Bond, who is the president, is that correct? What are you of the farmers market? Manager?
As of right now, I am the vice president and the manager of the market.
Okay. Anyway, has joined us. She was appointed today as an alternate member, and let's congratulate Ellie on her graduation up to being a regular member. That's good. And I had heard there were all kinds of rumors as to what was going to happen, or who was doing what, and all this. It seems like everybody did fine. We have a full board, except for this evening. Kelly is not here, and Julie, she's been pretty familiar with it. So, and since you have not A, been to a meeting and or B, had any training, we're going to have you observe, right? Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
And, right. And so what that also means is that, because Megan has recused herself because she could be enriched through Casella, we would only have 4, and PJ has now moved into participating, and I believe, I don't know, have you been thoroughly vetted, PJ? I'm not being sarcastic about this either, about any conflicts. Is there any question about that? I don't think there was, right?
Yep, I have no questions, but they did go through all that a few months ago when I started.
Right, okay. So as far as we're concerned right now, there is, we have 4 voting members. I'm not sure as we're going to frankly get to voting tonight, but we will be asking Prime if they would, if we do get to that point, would want us to vote with 4 members, which I often ask every applicant. Although we have a lot of work to do. All we have tonight is Prime. We have no other applications. We have information that was given to us. We have some correspondence. It's still a public hearing. I believe that, and Ethan can tell us, I guess, or Kyle, can you see everything that Ethan can see?
I'm not entirely sure. I can see about the participants, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, right. But anyway, I don't know how many members of the public are going to be watching us and who's going to be wanting to make or have public comments. We've got a public comment was adjourned last time. And I think that the main impetus this evening is going to be to verify with Prime once and for all what exact plan we are contemplating, what exact plan they want us to consider relative to any, and we're also asking any final questions. I have a couple about the parking. I have some about the height, things like that. We'll listen to what they say, and then hopefully be able over the next month to finalize findings, give Corey some direction so he can finalize. And he has a rough draft of mine to go through that he's been looking at, but until we know for sure what we're doing, he'll need that information, whatever we glean tonight, to finalize that, and motions regarding the project, the SUPs for the project itself. Does that sound correct, Corey? Hello? Are you I think you're frozen, Corey. We'll see if he unfreezes in a second. But anyway, that is a major thing. Scott, you've done some research regarding parking, correct?
That is correct. Just kind of ran through the numbers, dug up all the background information and what have you, and the numbers may or may not prove out properly once they tell us exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And there were some other background issues, I think, as I mentioned to you, in as far as compact, subcompact, which isn't mentioned in the ITE manual,
Okay.
yet they're using it.
Right. Okay. Corey, could you hear me before? You were sort of frozen video-wise, but
Yeah, I could hear you fine. I was giving you the thumbs up. I didn't realize I was frozen until you said it.
yeah.
But yes, everything you said sounds accurate.
Okay, great. I also want to talk a little bit about the process as it's proceeded so far. I'm a little concerned. I'm not mad about this certainly, but I'm a little concerned because there seems to be a sort of thought process going on among some people that everything's being stalled and we're not proceeding as we should, and that we've stalled the process. And I think that we're trying to be careful, we're trying to be good, but I want to talk a little bit at some point during the meeting about the timeline and how we got to where we are and how we can get this finished one way or another, whatever we're going to do. And so on. We have things that have been thrown at us, not just by the applicant regarding Prime specifically. I mean, aside from any other personal issues that I've had, but there was where we still don't know where we stand. The city tried to enact P4 of that law, and that was a little bit of a concern to understand how that was going to affect this application, even if they said that it was really exempt from it. Wasn't totally convinced that doesn't seem to have moved very far. I don't know if anybody has followed it completely, but the county plan, it was referred to the county planning board, another 239M referral. And the county planning board voted 7-0 to disapprove the change in the ordinance, which means the council, should they vote on it, need a supermajority to pass that law, which would allow city projects to go without zoning or planning review. So I don't know where they're at with that. I'm trying to find out if anybody does. Has been on agendas, etc. So that's where we're at. I guess the other thing I'm looking to find out is if people have specific stuff, questions, ideas, concepts that they want me to be bringing up tonight, stuff they've looked at in reviewing the plans or any of the comments, or any inclinations. This is as a board completely, so we need to make sure I want to make sure everybody's heard. Does anybody have anything that they want me to bring up? I guess actually, when I say that, not everybody, I'm talking about Scott, me, Ellie, and PJ. Because Megan, you can, and Julie, you're going to observe also, correct? So I guess my question is, do we have some stuff? I have a couple, but I'd like to hear from anybody that's got any stuff. If you don't, just say no.
I'll go first. As you mentioned, I'll kind of lay it out. I looked into the ITE, which is what they use in the DGEIS for parking calculations. Depending upon what their plan is, they may or may not meet even that requirement. And the other aspect of it is that then they're throwing in they're increasing the number of spaces utilizing the 20% compact, 20% subcompact vehicles. Well, that's out of our city code, but they aren't using our city code for the numbers. They're using an ITE manual, which is fine. It's a nationally recognized manual for figuring parking and what have you, but it is silent on compact and subcompact. So you kind of have to, I feel you have to take it as a package. If you use the ITE, fine, but you can't use compact and subcompact. Or you use our code, which has compact, subcompact, seems to work, but our code has more parking spaces, period.
Right.
So I guess I don't see where you can cherry pick the rules. You've got a lenient compact, subcompact in our code, but you have a stringent number of parking spaces, and they want to take a lenient number of parking spaces and a lenient number of compact, subcompact. And I'm not sure if that works. There's also nothing in as far as I could tell, they keep mentioning the hamlet, although I don't see any specific numbers from them about the hamlet, and there's nothing in anything that I found. But then again, there's 500 pages of stuff where they talk about compact and subcompact in the hamlet.
Okay. Okay.
My only other comment is the whole idea of the surface parking lot going all over to Prime. That just it just doesn't seem to fit right with the farmers and crafters market building
Right.
that's attached to it.
Okay. Anybody else have other stuff that they want brought up during the meeting? I have some stuff I'll talk about after, but I'm trying to do this before I influence it as much. No? PJ did call me to make sure about that he understood the first floor residential and whether or not that set a precedent. You know, that's something that is a concern for ours. And I'm just going to bring this up, PJ, because you had asked about it. And you see that a lot about don't let them put first floor residential in because everybody else will want to do it downtown. Actually, I just want to be clear that I think we've been pretty strict about how we look at that. When originally they changed, I just want to talk about this for a second, when they changed the zoning code to allow a smaller 3 acres instead of 5 planned unit development only in the central business district, nowhere else in the city, They also said at the time, well, we might want to have apartments facing that beautiful river view and on the first floor as an example, and so can we have first floor residential? The point of no first floor residential, which has been constant downtown since zoning started, was so that stores were not replaced by residential units, and the downtown had a merchant commercial feeling to it. This is the only area it affects is downtown, and it is only allowed in a planned unit development. That, I would say, differs as an example from parking. The parking requirements that they want to change, which first of all, they're allowed to have them, and secondly, the first floor residential. And I think there's been a pretty good effort to keep them up 8 feet off the ground or whatever they are, and get rid of some of the balconies and so on. But we all have our things that we do or don't like about plans, but we have to make sure that the things that we are concerned about are actual concerns or controllable or within our jurisdiction. They're allowed to do that. We got some input, and I think they responded. But the parking differs because that is a variation from what is allowed, and according to what we've talked about in our findings, is something that needs to be demonstrated that alternate calculation would have received a variance if applying for a variance, even though they're not doing variances. And I guess that's really what's starting to become the main issue here is parking and the effect of the surface lot. I have personally brought up several times this concept, as has Scott and others, of now it's been brought up at the planning board and various other boards of Prime not controlling that south lot and farmers market building so that the city is free to do something with it. This, by the way, is not necessarily having anything to do with whether or not they move the farmers market, which is my understanding pretty much done being built or whatever. But it's not about that. This is about that south lot. And one of the issues is that their calculations include 3,400 square feet of commercial space in there. And we need to understand from them how they would deal with that, number one. But in our last meeting, Dean DeVito did say, let us know how you want to make sure that the city has control of those 92 spaces. And that's one of the main things I'd like to talk about tonight. I do have some plan-specific questions for them, A, about their parking calculations, and B, about the height of the building, which seems to me on the elevations to be lower than what they're talking about on their charts. So that's something I want to talk about. And again, that's all part of understanding what plan that we're going to base our findings on and our votes for the SUPs. What is the final plan? And I'd like to determine that tonight so that at our December meeting, we can finalize this. You know, it comes up again about whether or not people are available for special meetings. Should we have a special meeting to do this? I think that it's a tough and busy time of year. And I think that by the time we get everything done and findings done, we're going to be pretty close anyway. I don't know how people feel about special meetings. Does anybody have any, because that's probably going to come up this evening. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Most especially Scott, Ellie, and PJ.
It doesn't bother me. I mean, I wouldn't mind as far as my own time, you know, as long as there was time to get everything together, but I have no issue.
It might be kind of tough for me scheduling wise until after Christmas.
What's that?
It'll probably be tough for me to fit in a special meeting scheduling wise throughout the holidays.
Okay. So, but we have our next meeting is the 21st of December would be our regular meeting. Scott?
I, I'm flexible with everything that's going on. It doesn't look like we're traveling at all. So I'm reasonably available. But I think that during, around Thanksgiving, it gets pretty tough to figure a meeting.
What's that?
Around
Say the last
Thanksgiving, it's just a little tough just because you've got holidays and what have you.
Right.
And
Well, I mean, I think that today's the 16th. The question would be whether we would have one before the 21st, and I don't even know the answer to that. Depends on what plans we're looking at. Depends how much is changing or not. So we can talk about that. It's going to be tough for me in some ways, work-wise and so on. But we'll talk about it and see. And Kelly had told me that she might be available, so we can talk about that. Depends on what we're considering. If there's going to be a bunch, something this is what it is, and at Corey, I'm not sure how long it's going to take us to work on findings and final resolutions between now and then. That's another question, frankly, because until we know what we're doing for a plan, and then we've got some time to get that stuff prepared. So I'm not sure what your schedule is also, but the question about, whether or not we should have a special meeting is up in the air, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I have some direction on which way the board's going, we can get some resolutions put together. I'm not too worried about the lead time on that.
Okay, so we'll see, and we can start to discuss that. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but Ellie, you're one of the 5, and we want to make sure that we have 5 people voting. And if it's not able to be done, it's not able to be done, and we'll have to deal with it on the 21st. I would dare say, though, that the goal is to make sure what we're doing this month with them and what the final plan is. If that's going to require any resubmissions on their part, whether it has to do with how we're dealing with the surface lot or whatever, then I think we'll see how long that would take them. And there may not be any. They might just say, this is it. This is the plan, and then we'll work on that, and we'll see what we can do about it. I will say also, though, on another note, that I would like to understand, not that I guess it matters, but the resolution of the P4 local law, if that's going to become a local law or not, where future and or reapplicants are going to be able to bypass zoning and planning. I don't know if that's going to be real or not real. Does that affect what we do? Maybe not. Maybe. But everybody's anxious to get this done. I've got some other concerns about how it's frankly affecting our board and our lives that we can talk about after also. We're going to be going in a couple of minutes. I don't know if anybody noticed, but that I'm just going to bring this up, and I want to talk to them about this in the meeting. We have their notes page, general notes page. It's got all the tables on it. And one of the things they talk about in the zoning chart that I'm really confused about is maximum building height 60 feet. That's number of stories times 12. Proposed 65 feet. And unless, I think I know how to read plans. Right now, it's showing the roof at 57 feet high. It's showing the roof at 186 and the ground floor level 1 at 129, which would seem to indicate, and that's up right near grade up on Durkee Street in that corner. That would seem to indicate a difference of 57 feet. So I want to make sure I understand that. Just as that's unless somebody noticed something that I missed. Scott?
isn't it based on the average elevation of the ground?
Well, no, they show level 1 at 129, and they show the roof. And the line is right to the top of the roof.
But level 1 isn't necessarily ground level.
Oh, no, but that's what they're using for the, I don't know. That's what I'll have to ask them, I guess. But that's the level 1 floor.
But you don't
Unless
measure,
that
you
is-
don't measure the height of a building based on the first floor. You measure it based on,
I agree, but that's what I want to understand anyway. I want to know where's the 65? That's just something I happened to notice. I was looking over them. And so I want to, Turner, I'm sure will be here and can answer that. But that was one, and then we have all their parking calculations. I think is going to be a fairly lengthy topic. Other than that, is there anything else anybody wants brought up tonight?
well, and one thing you mentioned, Ron, and I guess we just need to keep in the back of our mind is the first floor, apartments on the first floor. Assuming we approve it, that doesn't, we need to be sure it doesn't give them carte blanche to put eventually apartments in the retail area, which is
Right,
basically at almost at grade level, a little above.
right.
You know, I personally don't, looking at the plans, I don't have a problem with how high they are and, you know, approving them because it's our definition of a first floor is the first floor above the basement and the parking garage, parking structure is considered basement.
Yeah,
But the parking structure is not under the retail area except way under. And the retail
Right.
area gets very close to grade level.
mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
To that point, Scott, you're approving the plan that's presented to you. So I think it's smart to make that clear that if you issue an approval, it's for the plan that's submitted.
Right, and that would mean that any change from that plan would have to come back in front of the boards?
And you could make that a condition of your approval, absolutely.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Here's a question for you then. If P4 happened to get passed, and if P4 happened to get passed, and I guess at that point would Prime be owning the property, so it wouldn't be a city project, right?
Presumably, yeah.
Right, depends, but that's a question, and as long as it's, you know, once it's primes, but if that would happen or not before, that's another important distinction, just in case. So, all right, I guess what we should do then is adjourn the 6:30 meeting and go to the 7 o'clock meeting. Is that okay for everyone? All right, see you on the flip side.